We live streaming?
You should be good to go, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the March 25th, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Please rise and we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Maureen, please.
Commissioner King. Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Harvey.
Here.
Commissioner Minor.
Here.
Commissioner Pascarelli. Chairman Sobieski.
Here.
Commissioner Woods.
Here. Is it?
Commissioner Hoffman.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
And Commissioner Gill.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to seat Commissioner Hoffman for Commissioner Pascarelli and Commissioner Davis for who do I want to say? Commissioner King. Okay, thank you. Okay, approval of the agenda, Paul.
No changes, except to note that you do have an agenda in front of you. There was an amended agenda posted yesterday.
Right.
It's just no new items are on it. Just the item for the 824 has a better description to it. That's a little clearer instead of just saying purchase of a property at an address. It now says Connecticut Canine. So you'll have that in front of you. And as you go through that item, that is the correct description for it now, but that was officially amended. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Otherwise, no changes.
Thank you. Next is public participation, first round. Anybody wishing to speak on any items that are not on the agenda, please come up and state your name and address for the record. Anybody online?
I apologize. I'm having.
Yep, I do not see anyone. There's one person online, but I do not see a hand raised at this moment.
Okay. All right, thank you.
For some reason, I can't share my
Move
screen.
to
now, so I
the
can't get
zoning
this.
officer's report. Eric?
Shared. Yeah, just talk to me, I'll stick it out.
Any questions on the report for this month?
Did you check out that tree at RV?
Yeah, I was by there yesterday. So.
Okay, any other questions of the zoning officer? All right, thank you. Remarks by commissioners, any remarks by any of the commissioners? Hearing none. We don't have a public hearing. Sorry.
Commissioner Woods has his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Woods, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. Just want to welcome Commissioner Gill back to the Planning and Zoning Board. We missed your time and welcome back.
Yes, we have a new member here tonight, Commissioner Thomas Gill. He's an alternate. If you please introduce yourself to Tom Haley.
I'm Allie Davis.
Hi.
Pete Hoffman.
You
two know each other.
Joe Harvey. Stanley Sobieski and, you know, Chris Minor.
Chris Minor.
And Steve Woods is on.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I might as well too, just to, as I did Paul Dixon, you know, Eric Hinckley as well, but I'd also at the same time, I can introduce Charlie Nevers. So this is, Charlie has just joined us as my planning technician. So now we have this is your land use team for the town of Newington here. So we now have what I can officially say, a team together instead of a duo. We have a trio. And again, Charlie is here to help us continue our work. And again, a lot of the items we'll be working on tonight, especially the special section, Charlie will be taking a lot of lead on that as well with me.
Thank you. Public hearings, you just have the 824, right, Paul?
Yep, no public hearings.
All right. I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Move it.
There's a second. Second. All right, all in favor? Move the second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Okay, under new business, I am going to recuse myself along with from the 824. And I would like to call for a motion to appoint Commissioner Chris Minor to serve as Chairman Pro Tem for items TP 26-1.
So moved.
Move the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Minor? Thank
Yeah,
you.
Commissioner Minor,
Yes, sir.
I'm also going to
Commissioner
recuse, I'm also going to recuse myself from the 8-24 as I am the chair of the Permanent Municipal Building Committee. And I don't want to make sure there's any sort of perceived conflict. So I will be sitting out.
All right, thank you. We'll make a, let's see, you need the seat.
Do not know why we have it in the small side. All right.
I think there's a problem with Board of Ed. He's over there complaining to Stanley right
No,
now.
hold on. Excuse me, guys. Let's see what NCT is up. Apologize for technical difficulty now.
Chris. So we need to go one for you.
Do I need to leave the room?
I don't see it need.
The mics are live, so just. We bleeding over?
No, it's just NCTV is having audio, is having no audio from it, but that's okay. We're on a fun night for this. And for some reason, on the screen, it is not showing on the large one. I think this was happening last night as well, too. All right. So we're gonna be on a smaller screen today, so I'm glad I printed out some of the other quicker ones and maybe we'll figure that out. Maybe we could give Scott a quick call. All right, so Mr. Chairman, well, where are we at? Did you call this item, the
Yeah,
824?
so I have not called it yet, so we're gonna need to seat. Mr. Harpy is recusing himself.
Yes,
We will seat Commissioner Gill in his place
all right.
and we can call a petition. So if you could just give us some background on.
Yes, so, we need the other one too. So the background on this is, again, this is a referral, for the potential purchase of 239, Maple Hill Avenue, which is the Connecticut K-9 Educational Center. So you'll find a memo in your, packets from, Jonathan Altschul, Town Manager, to the Town Council, which was the recommendation from the Permanent Municipal Building Committee for the potential purchase of K-9, the Connecticut K-9 facility at, sorry about that.
So it's on.
Why won't go on again at 239 Maple Hill Avenue. Now, it is a requirement of the town, all municipalities, to have this K-9 facility, to have a K-9 facility within town. The current facility, again, is proposed for sale or up for sale. So this is a potential negotiation, again, with this current owner to purchase this property. So why it's in front of the TPZ is specifically Connecticut, 824, that section of the statute says when the town sells, purchases property, does any major,
Oh, turn off.
he's gonna fix something, sorry. There we go. So this would be good for the future.
Sorry.
Okay, again, kind of the background on that one is, again, they're looking to sell. We do have this potential purchase. Again, it's in negotiations, and I'll update the TPZ too as well, that last night at the council, again, 824s are not financial decisions for a planning commission. It is primarily a report to the council on whether it conflicts with the town's plans. So this is primarily the plan of conservation and development or any other plans that would be highlighted in that area. So currently the town doesn't have any master plans or anything in this area of town that would be applicable to this type of sale. So we have the plan of conservation and development. So looking through the plan of conservation and development, other than general support for, again, town needs and expanding, recognizing that the police department does have storage issues that predated kind of like town hall construction too, but currently, hasn't been a large expansion of area. So there has been those noted issues in the P O C D, but the P O C D did not get so fine grained to talk about an animal control facility. So this is a state mandate. It's something that the towns do have to follow. Now, there'll be multiple options for this. And again, that's the town manager and council to make that final decision about how you go through the process of fulfilling this mandate. You'll notice in the recommendation, again, or the memo from the town manager, that the other option would be Bloomfield at $60,000 per year, or the purchase of this property. And what that negotiation amount would be, again, that is a financial decision between a financial negotiation with the town manager and a financial decision with the council. So for you, in front of you, it's basically, does this conflict or not with a plan of conservation and development? Do you have other concerns kind of a planning nature? When we looked at the property, looking at kind of the aerial, we do note, I don't know, did you add any pictures of that, Eric, to it? No, you didn't. Okay. So you'll note in your packet, maybe you can bring that up. If you can bring up the GIS there, that the property there's 3 properties that kind of share the same access driveway. So Connecticut K9 at 239 Maple Hill Ave rear has an access way that goes through 239 Maple Hill Ave. And also, I believe it's 241 or 245 next to it as well. So this driveway actually shares across 3 different properties. Now, these were all in one family in the past, and it's kind of changed over time, but it wasn't till that long ago that they actually were all maintained under one family. So staff's recommendation, as noted in the packet, in our memo, is that at least that legal permanent access be worked out prior to any acquisition of the property or as part of the acquisition. Again, that's just proper planning to make sure you're not landlocked on a parcel. It developed underneath a family, kind of how it is. We have that business that's been for a long time. The town currently utilizes Connecticut K9 facility as well. That's why, going through the Permanent Municipal Building Committee, that was the recommendation to move that forward to council as the potential purchase. Again, the TPZ's responsibility is not looking at the cost of it. It's looking at, does it conflict with the plans? Does this cause any larger issues within the area? And are there any recommendations that you would provide to council for this type of purchase when looking at the land, the layout, the access, areas that the TPZ would normally look at when land or any development within town? So that's kind of the large overview of it. And you can see up on the screen, where you zoom out just a little bit, Eric. So 239 rear, the Connecticut K9 training facility is the one that's is highlighted there in gray. You have 239 in the front. Yeah, and you can actually now, so it gives you kind of an overview. And then you can zoom in a little bit and then turn on the aerial if it works tonight. Yeah. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. There we go. And there you go. So now you can see what we're talking about with the driveway. You kind of have access across 239 to 239 rear, and you have the property to the south of it also utilizing that driveway for parking. This is something that if the town did acquire it, it should be worked out prior to any sale. Again, we would not want to have a landlocked parcel, and you wouldn't want to have something come down the road that is all of a sudden a disagreement and then you can't access the property. So that's staff's recommendation, that potentially to look at this with a positive referral. Again, looking through the POCD, there isn't anything that I found that is fine-grained enough to say whether this is supported, not supported, other than general space needs and supporting what the town needs are and the police department needs. And, that my recommendation is to say this does not conflict with a plan of conservation development.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Fox?
To the chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this would be an ideal site. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was just telling Joe, the last rescue we had was through Newington, so. And I personally have been up and back that road many a time. I've had many of animals and, you know, used to do for training and grooming and everything. And so I noticed but let me just ask a quick question, just play a little bit back. Has the town manager or the committee looked at the highway department area?
So I think, again, they looked at the town facilities, what was out there. Personally, you know, I was looking at the highway department as well. I've discussed this also with the town engineer. Fire department training, firing range, not an ideal scenario for a rescue dog, you know, for a dog to be in that scenario. This is just me as the animal lover that I am. Extra stresses that can be put onto that one that could be an issue depending on where you are there. And also there is limited space at that facility as well, currently.
Excellent points. And so, you know, putting that aside in a way, I think that would be ideal. I mean, what are the thoughts on what would be using the retail area? As everybody knows, you walk in there, you get all the nice, all the toys and the leashes and everything, and they take the dog downstairs and have them all groomed and pretty. Number one. Number two, would the purchase include the training area, which, if I remember correctly, from when I was training our dogs, which is in the front, you know, between the Schwartz house and Connecticut Canine. Would that be included in the purchase?
So I think a lot of that would be as part of like the negotiations in the purchase. It hasn't really been reported to me exactly, but those specifics about kind of the retail area and training area. You have the parcel that it is now, and that's primarily why this is, again, the title. And that was very specific of it. It is purchase of this facility. And however the deal works with the property, again, the negotiations between the town manager, the property owner, and then approval by council, I think will be those fine-tuned specifics on the property.
And our responsibility as a body is not to get into the finite details of the transaction. It's simply to recognize whether or not it's an
Yes, I
acceptable
understand.
use within the plan of conservation and development. So I don't want
A
to.
few of them.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions?
I'm
Yes.
not finished, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait.
Continue.
At any rate, last paragraph of the town manager's where's that going? No, that's not what I'm talking about. But that end of the last paragraph, it talks about a legal rear entrance permit. I think that would be, yeah, here it is. I think that would be perfect so that, you know, you're going to pick up a dog or bring a dog in, yeah, so that the families are not bothered with all the dust and everything from the driveway. So I think that'd be a good idea. And I would approve this 8-24. I would suggest that they approve this.
Yep, and that is one of the motions that is prepared for you tonight. Again, and I can kind of, since we're talking about it, the motion specifically, again, is motion to issue a favorable referral for petition TP 61 with a recommendation that the town formalize a permanent legal access to 239 Maple Hill Avenue rear as part of any acquisition. Again, how that worked out with the specifics, that's, again,
Right.
negotiations
Within the
between the
details.
parties.
Sounds good.
Anything else, Commissioner Fox?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question and a comment.
Yes.
Well, I would like to say that there is an animal crisis in Connecticut, and I appreciate all that our animal control officers do. I think they do an excellent job. And so I think this would be a great opportunity for the town. I do have a question, though. Would this come back to us later at some point, or we recommend it today and then we never see it again?
So as far as the acquisition, this is the acquisition part of the 824. So an acquisition wouldn't come back. Now, if the town did any major improvements on it, built a new building, did something like that, that can come back. So those are the main things of, that's the look at, that significant improvement. So yes, so say if a town acquired a piece of land and said, okay, we're gonna build a new building on it. That would be something that would come back as an 824. If it's something as, how are you gonna, the space needs inside, the fine tune, no, that is not an 824. That is within the normal administration of the town.
Thank you. I'm all set. Thank
Further
you.
questions? Thank you. No one else has anything else? I'd look for a motion to issue a favorable referral with a recommendation that it is a favorable referral for petition TPZ 26-1 with a recommendation that the town formalize a permanent legal address for 239 Maple Hill Avenue rear as part of any acquisition.
So moved.
Second?
Second,
By Commissioner Rice Davis. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, motion is passed.
Just to confirm, that was access. Okay. I think it came across what was said, permanent legal access.
Yeah, formalize a permanent legal access
Yes.
to 239 Maple Hill Avenue rear as part of any acquisition.
Thank you.
Clarification. Okay.
All right.
For commissioners, Mr. Chair, return.
Are you resharing?
Yeah, I grabbed it.
Okay, good.
For now,
For now.
until we get to yours, yes.
All
Sorry.
right. So your pro se chairmanship is over.
My pro se term is finalized. And I will return the chairmanship to Commissioner Sobieski.
Yes. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate this. All right. We're all set. Next is zoning regulation amendment.
I jumped ahead. I jumped ahead. Yeah, you jumped ahead. So there's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. You got it correct. So I will share my screen.
Okay.
Once it lets me do that, 'cause we're having a so fun technology night.
Not letting you know.
No, it will.
Yeah.
Okay. So at a previous meeting, we had briefly discussed what special section Public Act 25-1, some of the zoning changes that take effect because of it or will need to take effect by July 1st. So by July 1st, the future actions really are mobile manufactured homes, and I'll kind of touch on these as we go through. This is a very kind of simple change or simple review of regulations to think about what we need to change. Transit community middle housing, which is a larger review. Summary housing goes along with that. Parking minimums, parking exceptions, and the one thing I do not get into right now and this screen has is parking fee in lieu of. We currently do not have a fee in lieu of program, so there is a change that says when you can or can't require it. If it's something we want to look in the future, again, now there's more restrictions on it, but this is something that Newington currently doesn't have. And again, a housing growth plan. So I kind of point out the housing growth plan too. That's not something I plan to talk about tonight, but I highly encourage you that if you are interested in it, I gave a presentation on it last night at council. That kind of went over 15-minute presentation, 25-minute questions. So, you're looking at 40 minutes to kind of absorb it. But the main gist of that is a lot of stuff we will not know until December on that one, but we will be working with, ideally working with CROG to go through the process all the way, but we will definitely be working with CROG when the allocations are, done to the towns to figure out what those numbers are. And we hope to continue to work with them through the process. So for what we're looking at tonight, there was another item too, protest petitions. I brought this up. Again, it increased the amount of land and it lowered the threshold for approval. So really the way I look at this for protest positions, Now it's, we will have to change our regulations, strike 20, turn it to 50% to be compliant with it, and change it from a 2/3 to a majority. The way I look at this is, while it's still in there, you're talking 50% or more of the land area or lots around it and just a majority vote. But even without a protest position, you'd have to be approved by a majority vote anyway. So essentially, it as a protest petition, but it doesn't have a higher threshold or a bar of actually approving it by something. So again, if we keep this section in here, that does acknowledge that protest petitions still do exist within the Connecticut general statutes. But if you look, then yeah, the 2/3 majority is gone. So that's one simple fix, or should change to our regulations. Mobile manufactured homes. So section 18 eliminates the 22-foot wide width reference to mobile manufactured homes. And there's kind of a distinction here. Mobile home versus mobile manufactured homes. So the pre-1976 instruction, lowered safety standards, vintage terminology, like that's what we review is if you, in your mind, you picture a mobile home park. What you have is a mobile manufactured home, or more if you've, we don't have any in town, but as mobile home parks. But if you have seen mobile home parks out there, you'll see that over time, certain areas of them have transferred over to the normal one that looks like a mobile home to something that does look like a manufactured home, just smaller. What we're used to as tiny homes, what we're used to seeing of that. These are, again, built to higher standards. They have to meet those standards, and they are different than the typical, mobile home of the past. So that's an item where our regulations cannot treat them substantially different from any other residential uses. Where we have that in our regulations now is we do this we don't allow trailers and mobile homes, but we do specifically say manufactured housing on a permanent foundation, meeting all code requirements is not considered a mobile home. So the town, I think at the last time this got changed in 2001, luckily we didn't keep we didn't put the width requirement, but it removed the width requirement. So we may or may not be more or less in compliance with this, but I'll keep reviewing this. But this is something for your attention that, again, that manufactured homes is what it's moved to now, and getting rid of that terminology of old-fashioned mobile homes. And now we get into the big part, the transit community middle housing. So these are a residential building containing 2 to 6 units, again, townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, perfect 6, and cottage clusters. It's interesting, again, it does say a residential building. Cottage clusters are more than one residential building. That's a terminology that we'll have to figure out as we're looking through it. But the intent is there that it's basically 2 to 9 units as typically one building. Again, it has nothing to do with, even though it's transit community middle housing development, nothing to do with TOD, not required to be near any type of transit. It's primarily the middle housing that, we've heard of in the last bill that was vetoed, and then this bill was passed. And this is kind of the same added transit community middle housing. So again, this requires zoning regulations to permit transit community middle housing and mixed use development on any lot zoned for commercial or mixed use development, subject only to summary review. So this applies to all commercial zones. Again, not only those served by transit. So what we'd be looking at, this is kind of smaller up on the screen, and you have a packet kind of in front of you that has it. This is in the staff report when we were kind of looking through. These are the simple fixes, simple changes, but the commission will likely want to consider a little more when it comes to setbacks and area. Again, this is a newer type of use in a commercial zone. We have larger multifamilies where we have those larger apartment buildings, example in the PD zone, which are by special permit, but these are now smaller developments. So the simple proposal is to add transit community middle housing as a permitted use. This might change a little because there's permitted use, and we'll get into that, and then there's summary review. But it's to add that in and add in mixed use residential development. So there's a definition for that as well. What we did here is take our existing apartments and business buildings, which is Newington has a mixed use residential type of use we have permitted. But that was more, again, I'll put it up here, this will be struck, but it's the same thing as a special permit that was in the business zone and business town center zone. You see, we took those, moved it into the business zone. By putting it in the business zone, it affects every other commercial zone pretty much, other than CD, commercial development by right, which we'll have to add in, because our regulations reference up as they go back to the business zone. So again, by putting it in there, these are highlighted for the commission to consider. Are these regulations that you wish to continue forward with? Again, each department shall have an unobstructed access to the outside. That does, potentially, again, this is mixed use. So that does prevent you potentially from having a common hallway as part of a mixed use residential development. Now, this would be, again, permitted, but 2 to 9, we can work on these numbers to look at. But again, is it something that you would not want to have a common hallway in a mixed use building, which has its disadvantage, but it also has its advantages. If you have 9 people living together in a building, 9 separate doors on the backs and side, you could end up with a pretty kludgy looking building, lots of different access ways to the back. You might end up with a product and a development that might not meet what you think is community standards for how it's going to look. A center hallway, a nice building, put together a good envelope, and you get the advantage of some level of community within the building, because those, when you have doors, there's friction sometimes that can happen with neighbors, but there's a lot of advantages that can happen with neighbors. You see people coming in and out. You know that you don't see someone coming in, in the morning. On that one, you can ask, you can check in on them. It has a little bit more opportunity for community within a building than a separate on each building. Soundproofing to be installed to isolate the normal sounds of business activity. This is a carryover on that one. This is one of those near and dear to me on that, where normally a developer should do the right thing, and there are plenty of places that do this correctly. Most of them would do it just by habit, that they would know that they want their tenants to be able to live in a relatively peaceful environment, especially if you have a loud coffee shop underneath, has a lot of music, a lot of stuff going on, acoustic performances, or maybe amplified, having a good time, that could interrupt the people above. So they might do that. And then 1,000 square feet of land area per dwelling unit. That's, pretty decent density when you consider it. So is that something you want to go forward? The one item that we do have to add is for developments with 16 or more units, 1 parking space per studio or single bedroom unit, and 2 spaces with 2 bedrooms shall be provided. So when we get into the parking, that's the key thing, is 16 or more, we can require parking. Less than 16, we cannot. Not to say they won't build it, but we can't require it as part of a regulation. It can't be the reason why it is denied.
That's the revised threshold, correct?
It's a
16.
yes.
A threshold.
Yeah, it is that threshold that kicks in. And then there's an exception to it later that we'll get into. For the business town center zone, again, it would be striking apartments and business buildings. This would then be automatically by reference by permitted use by the business zone. And then we would add unrestricted multifamily buildings with 10 units or more. So again, you'll have that the transit community middle housing by right, by auto reference to the business zone. And then this is 10 or more, keeping that in special permit. So the community, so the TPZ will have the ability to review anything from 10 to as many units as that can, fit per the regulations normally on that lot. Again, PD zone, it would be the same thing as well. We would have to just add in residential buildings containing 10 units or more. That would be a simple fix to that. Otherwise, it would remain the same. So commercial development zone. So we do not have that much commercial development zone within the town. Primarily, the commercial development zone is up on Willard, where you have the medical office buildings, and that is the commercial development zone. There is I think a single parcel that currently has a place of worship.
Yes.
That is in, what road is that on?
That's on New Britain Avenue.
On New Britain Avenue. There's one that's actually commercial development, but other than that, there isn't a large amount of CD zone within the town. But again, since it does allow commercial uses, we do have to add in the same as the business zone. Again, permitted use by summary review, same requirements that we previously discussed. It affects our Willard Avenue development district, where it's actually supposed to be WHD. That again, we have to say that 16 units or more. Requires parking, but it doesn't for under 16 units. Again, a mandate for parking, a minimum for parking. It does not prohibit a developer from building parking, nor does this put any cap on the amount of parking a developer can put on the property. Again, they need to see the need for their tenants. They need to lease out the property. So there'll be some balance in there. Well, one item to look at, again, this isn't any changes, but this is items for us to consider as we look through. Patio houses is interesting. This is that R7 to R12 by special permit, alternate residential uses. Highlighted the 6,000 because in the definitions we say 4,500, but that's in the RP zone. The definition talks about the RP zone, which is gone, but it's still referenced. So that's something for us to clean up and think about how much space per each one of those should be required. Duplexes, we really need to just look at the definition of duplexes, but that's the same 4,500 square feet per unit. And apartments. Again, apartments is very general. We only use it a couple places in there. That's sometime unrestricted multifamily. It's all apartments. I think this is an opportunity for us to take all of our definitions together and clean it up and make it kind of succinct. Because I think it's been changed multiple times through the years, and it kind of has bits and pieces through all the changes that have existed. One little small item we have to look at is when we look at the business zone. Interestingly enough, the height doesn't change, but we do need to change it to 3 stories in the business zone, specifically because the bill does say perfect sixes. A perfect six is a specific building type, a center hallway going up a center corridor, and then, you know, up, 3 stories, 2 on each. That's the perfect six.
That would, excuse me, Paul, that would not exceed 35 feet.
Correct. So it's interesting enough, like we had 2 stories, 35 feet, and the business town center, we had 3 stories, 35 feet. So one item that I would like to do, and this will kind of be as we move forward, is to provide the commission with the typical housing styles, types, heights. So we kind of have a really good understanding of what each one of these type of buildings typically is built, what height it has, how much, if we look across, you know, the spectrum of all zoning regulations out there that are averaged, how much land they typically have per dwelling unit. A 2-family, a townhouse, again, which a townhouse can be 3 units, a townhouse can be 30 units. It's just how they're constructed and how the party walls are all the way from the bottom to the top. That's what makes a townhouse versus a duplex. We have it defined as 2 units under the same roof. Doesn't talk about that party wall necessarily. Building code does require a party wall. Again, this is a good reason for us to think about our definitions and how we want to move forward and clean it up and have it succinct. So summary review. So those are the uses that we have to permit. This is how we have to go about permitting them. So summary review, again, it's an existing process, but they did make modifications to it. Able to be approved in accordance with the terms of zoning regulations, including but not limited to requirements concerning setbacks, lot size, building frontage, applicable to proposed development. So again, you can still have setbacks, lot size, building frontage that are appropriate to those type of developments. Again, this is an item where, you know, you don't want to go so far afield of saying, okay, if you have a 2-family, you have to have, you know, 200 feet of frontage. That's out of ordinary. That's something that wouldn't survive the scrutiny for the intent of the regulation. But you can look at what we typically have for our dwelling units. You can look at what are the standards out there that are across the board and have something that makes sense for development. You know, my main concern is depending on where these are, you're going to need to park a car. Even though that, you know, areas that says maybe you can't require on that, but you still need to have space because most areas in Newington, again, we do not have a robust public transportation system. We have a bus system. We have opportunities around TOD areas. But if you're talking about the Berlin Turnpike, we actually rarely even have pedestrian facilities around there. So it's even very hard to walk. So you have to drive to live there. So those area considerations are actually where, just to make sure you have enough room to put a car if you need to. You have a little room outside if that's how the development is put together. So again, we can't require a public hearing for any of these, a variance, a special permit, a special exception, or any other discretionary zoning action. There's a couple items that we've already identified. Again, discretionary zoning items, you have to have pretty much understood standards, dimensional standards, numbers, this many square feet, this many foot. You can't say, well, or you have to, if example, if you're talking about a buffer, you can't say, oh, one suitable to the commission. That's discretionary. If you had to have a buffer between something, you would have to say 10 feet, 20 feet. You'd have to have a specific number. So it can't be something that, again, puts the discretion in the commission to kind of look at it, vary it, find out, okay, we think we need more. Even this is applicable even in landscaping, and if the commission feels like it needs a sprinkler system or not, that's actually in there. That's discretionary. And again, it's a determination that the site plan is in conformance with the regulations and that public health and safety will not be substantially impacted. So this is the one little item that's different. When you look at as of right uses and summary review actually has the public health and safety aspect out front as an item. So as we kind of move forward, this would be something for us to discuss on how this applies to it. Again, we can't hold a public hearing on a summary review item. You can technically hold a public hearing on a as of right regular site plan. However, it does not change your timing. It does not change what you do. You know, it's one of those summaries very specifically prohibited that you can't hold a public hearing on it, and it cannot be discretionary. So right now, we're proposing that this lives within the procedures for site plans. There'll be some tweaking that goes on, but this definition was in your packet as well. Again, site plan subject to summary review, we tie it back to the general statutes, those specific requirements to it. And again, public health and safety, that will be an interesting item as we move forward to discuss. And then sections 18 and 19, parking. So we've gone through the new use, the 2 to 9 units, how it's approved. And this is generally parking. Now this is across the board for all residential uses. So we cannot require a minimum number of off-street parking spaces for any residential development except for as provided as in section 16 or 19, sorry. And 19 does talk about, and I'll kind of move forward on that, development over 16 units or 16 units or more, we may require those parking spaces. We're limited to the one space per, our existing ones now. So the town did adopt the last time the Public Act came through and changed those parking standards where you could opt out or you could go in. Town did work with the statutes and say, sure, 1 for studio and 1 bedroom, 2 for 2 bedroom makes sense. We can require that for 16 or more. If it's under 16, we cannot require parking as a minimum requirement. Again, how things get developed will change a little bit as you go through. A developer ideally would not develop something that has 0 parking. You could only really do that if you are in an area that has public transit that you can walk, that has a lot of jobs nearby. Otherwise, you're putting people on an island and nowhere to put their cars, and you're externalizing parking. So that, those would be those concerns that are out there. But the likelihood of a developer building something without parking in Newington, I would think would be low.
I mean, is the thought to allow for on-street parking?
So there's nothing in this that requires that you do permit on-street parking. Now, that's the way down in the weeds type of scenario of, say someone comes in, develops something, they're over relying on on-street parking, then that's something that the town will have to look at how that on-street parking is managed. But nothing in this act says you must provide on-street parking. It doesn't externalize that into the public good, because parking is a public good. A lot of parking is free, of course, in Newington. There aren't any pay areas on that, but it is a public good. It's maintained, paid for through everybody's taxes. So that's something for the town that you can control is your parking on street.
I get a little concerned with, we've had some bad snowstorms this year. We've had at least 2, maybe 3, 4 parking bans. What do you do with these cars if there's nowhere to put them?
That is a very good question. Again, that I think Well, it can't be the sole reason, you know, that's when you look at this public health and safety.
And I think
yeah.
that falls well within that.
Yeah. Thing that I'm concerned with here is, and again, you know, I haven't talked to Rob, I keep meaning to try to call him. I know when they did run into a car that was on the street, the plow truck stayed in back and hit the air horns until somebody came out moving.
Mhm.
And that's all well and good if it's in front of your house. If it's in front of somebody else's house, very disturbing.
Oh.
So we need to find and maybe to talk to the town council, the town council sit down and reassess that. You know, I know nobody wants to have their car towed, and I don't think the town council wants to have, you know, highway department call a record and have it towed, but, you know, people need to use some common sense here too.
Yep, and I'll clarify too that this is not in the residential zones. This is in the commercial zones.
But I'm just
So-
saying whether it's in a.
But if
commercial or
it's, yeah, I mean, my concern is it's not addressed
Mhm.
in that setting, and there's nothing saying, I think that it's not something that could be a problem.
Yeah, and I think, so, and this will kind of get into the growth plan, and there are other sections of this public act. I do have the Connecticut Council of Governments did a 86 page summary, but it includes every single, I know, portion of the act, and then what it kind of talks about. So I highly recommend looking at that. That's on the town council's agenda in their packet for yesterday's meeting. The links should be live links where you can click right through there. They'll lead you right to the pages you need to go to so you don't have to search. So that's on there. But there are other ones that are voluntary that actually are within the residential areas to look at it. But the housing growth plan is going to look at, you know, potentially those areas that are my areas to look at that I think where it's most appropriate. And an opportunity is the interfaces where you have that abrupt change from commercial or industrial to residential now. That's going to be the biggest opportunity to maybe actually increase quality of life. But again, the parking requirements are something where if it's 16 or more, yep, you can require it. But if it's under 16, it can't be the sole reason. But then, yes, we'll have the health and safety questions.
Yeah.
And as we look at summary review, that'll actually be a question of at what level is something commission? Is it all going to be commission? This is as we move forward. Next month is going to be a very busy month as we talk through this, because my goal would be to start public hearings on this in May. So we could get something ideally approved towards June or get a regulation in place by mid-June. So that way it can be published, everything can be in place. And so I think next month is going to be a very busy month. So this is kind of introductory here.
Commissioner Murphy?
Paul, just in terms of how you're working through this, is it your understanding that if you disagree with the whole section, you just leave it as? Or are you required to respond to it in some detailed manner? In terms of organization of your thoughts and your presentation to us?
Yeah, so for me, the way I look at it, I'm going to present something that's compliant with the act. And that responds to it. So if it says you can't require parking, it's going to change towards that. I'm trying to, maybe I want to focus your question on that one too, but yes, and ultimately it will be the TPZ. You are the ones who will approve or deny any regulation that comes forward to you. The risk, of course, of having non-compliant regulations is someone comes in with something, there's no standards for it.
Right.
They propose it, you get sued. There's no standards. It is what it is. So as we look through the process, it is a lot of work actually in a short time to really think about these standards. Because yes, we do have larger multifamily developments. We do
Right.
have those in commercial areas, but they have typically, by nature of what they are, they have larger setbacks from other uses because they have fields of parking around them. That they have to provide. So if you think of what's been recently built, if you think of the mill yard, for example, you go look at it, you know, double stack of parking, garages, everything, it kind of exists as an island, but it is a little farther away from stuff and it's not right in another commercial area. It's not tight to it just because of the nature of how large it is, the amenities and how it's developed. We haven't seen smaller ones yet. So to me, that's more, those dimensional standards could be important just to make sure you don't get something that's really out of whack. And I'm most concerned about the quality of life for any future residents who would be living there.
So for example, when you have a discussion here of section 5.3 procedures and requirements for site plans.
Mhm.
It says the site plan application subjected to summary review shall not require a public hearing. Well, suppose you have a neighborhood come out and they strongly object to it. Then this board would have, this commission would have no ability to allow for a public hearing, or how does that?
That's correct. By the statute, yep, the statute very specifically, the act, which will become a statute and we have a specific
Yeah, I
number,
don't
but the
think that-
act.
I don't think that plays well to democracy in general. I just think this is the problem with this whole program, and you'll know better than I for sure. There's this language that just goes in just to fill the space automatically, and it doesn't. Those who in the legislature preach that they believe in human this and human that, freedom this, freedom that. But when you look at even the site plan, which is so critical to the whole development of the project, the public is cut out. I don't get the logic of that.
So
I mean, who does that favor? I mean, I just don't understand the dynamics of it, I guess.
yeah, and
I'm
it's.
not throwing it on you.
It's always been the kind of unknowns when you have when you work with people, with developers on that one, the special permit, it's a very big unknown. When someone comes together, these are smaller developments, so they aren't as much of an outlay. But when someone comes in front of you, they've already spent a good amount of time, money on experts, engineers on that and outlay. And when you have special permit uses, there's a lot of chance for someone to say, well, I don't like that. I don't like this. The public comes out and talks to it and you go like, it's a special permit. You kind of meet it, but we have discretion, therefore no. And it's a lot of unknowns.
But the public wouldn't necessarily be sympathetic to what the
Correct.
developer paid in
Yeah.
advance. That's his problem.
And
I just think that this would come and fall on us as an issue eventually.
and that's why it's gonna be,
Problematic issue.
the time frame is tight for this, and that's why the dimensional standards are important. You have to think about a lot of what ifs. As when you add a new use into a zone, you have to think of these what ifs. And that's the important part of how they work into it, because that would be the biggest concern, I think, of any resident. You know, I would think the public concerns, if you're talking about adding residential into commercial zones, the biggest concerns I would think about the people who are actually moving into there, who are gonna be living there, because they're more impacted by the uses around them. So by having residential, like if you have a single family residential zone and you add a 2 to 9 unit next to it in an area where, say, you could have a Jiffy, but instead you're gonna put a 6 unit perfect 6 next to it. The perfect 6 is less of an impact than a Jiffy Lube is next to it. You could have that in a commercial. So I think the big impact is gonna be people who could be moving into these zones. That's my big concern.
I think the other side of this is a public hearing might be healthy even for the developer, because it might clarify to those people who object to it, get a more sense of, what, it wasn't a bigger deal than they thought it was. And one other quick question, if I might, Mr. Chairman. You talked about mobile homes.
Mhm.
Are these mobile parks?
No.
Or-
No, it would be a mobile manufactured home, really, at the end of the day. They're smaller, they're not parks, but they can't be treated any differently. So yes, if you have a single family lot and it meets all those standards, you can install it.
Okay, suppose you have 100-year-old manufacturing company that's been there for years, and you're gonna mix it with commercial. At whatever the distance is between those things, and it's very loud. Manufacturing ammunition, especially now. From what I read, the company would have to provide for some soundproof system or something. They don't specify soundproof, but what I'm saying, the language here would require the company spend the money to modify the noise. They would champion underneath a resident who under these new built a 2 to 4 unit or whatever the maximum. I don't know, that's why they shouldn't be put together or close to each other. That's only ignorance on the part of the person, in my opinion. Because if you're gonna do that kind of mix, it should be something less than a manufacturing company next to someone, which, as you well know, your experience, you've seen that.
Yeah, and that's,
Same
again,
that-
that's my
that
concern
kind of-
about getting close. It's like, and again, I've been exploring, looking at options too, and this is discussing and, you know, as part of this, we do have the CROG, the Council of Governments, Capital Region, assisting us as well, looking through these things. Jacob Knowlton is here tonight as well too. We'll be working with them, Caitlin Palmer, through the housing growth plan. But I'm gonna be leaning on as many partners as I can possibly pull into the tent to help us understand this and to look at these questions, because I have concerns again. My thing is like, okay, near sensitive uses, loading docks, again, manufacturing. Now, nothing says that this is going in the industrial zone. So again, this is commercial. These are these commercial zones that we're looking at.
How would you define the Newington Industrial Park? As
So it depends on if it's in the PD zone.
Some of it is in the PD zone.
Yep, some in the PD zone. So those off of Payne Road, for example, are in the PD zone. Therefore, theoretically, if there was a vacant parcel back there, a 9-unit could go back into there.
Well,
Paul, I have one thing, you know, and I, over the years, I've heard complaints of, you know, industrial zones or construction companies, whatever you want to call it, whatever's there, starts equipment at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it carries to the residential zone. And I know there was one on Payne Road, for instance, that did it, and the owner of that property made them move the equipment to the other side. Now it's an apartment house there. So, you know, and over the years, and I'm sure even today, we still get complaints about noise. So I think that we need to seriously look at this and come up with some type of protection for both, for the residential zones especially. And especially where they, but because our industrial or in BD zone flows right next door to a residential area. Because of what's happened in the past with zoning. And I am concerned about the quality of life, excuse me, about the quality of life of those people and that they're gonna be going into here. So I think maybe this might be something we should bring to the state rep and bring to his attention or her attention. And say, this is going to become a problem somewhere down the line. Maybe Jacob doesn't, or maybe Krog doesn't think so, but you might want to look at this, Jacob. Because this has become, especially some small towns like Newington, where everything's been jammed into here and jammed into there. You know, and our noise ordinance is after 10 o'clock, you know, and the police can enforce it. But if I work third shift, I'm coming home and I want to get some sleep. You know, and they're starting to pound, putting in, you know, pile driving or whatever they're doing. That's gonna interrupt my sleep. I have a reasonable expectation that I should be able to, you know, get some rest or whatever during the day. You know, especially if I own a house.
Yep.
That's my concern there. Sorry.
No, by all means, I think health and safety is going
Right.
to be a concern.
Right, and the other thing that, I know you glossed over this a little bit, but I would not be in favor, and I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but I would not be in favor of getting less than 35 feet from the edge of the road. Especially if you get onto a road where guys plow, that rooster tail could go 20 feet. Like, right, Chris? Not more?
Depending on the equipment doing it,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
All right, so I'm sure, you know, if you had a house that's 15 feet off the edge of the road, and that plow comes flying through there, you're gonna hear the snow whacking the windows and everything else, so. Excuse me, I would not want to see the offset from the edge of the road back. That would be just my consideration, sorry.
Yep, and that's what I'm kind of looking to from the
Right.
commission as well too, is thinking about these bulk requirements, the distance, like we have existing distances right now in commercial zones to the residential zone. 100 feet for those automotive uses, 100, so that's for us to think about those dimensional. To me, it's what are those potentially deleterious uses, those issues that we have, again, are in our PD zones. That's primarily the PD and the Business Berlin Turnpike that have those. Our traditional business zones are not as heavy duty. They're, you know, they're your neighborhood commercial, New Britain Ave, which by the way, exists right next, like house commercial zone. It exists as it is now on New Britain, like the business zone itself. To me, it's the Business Berlin Turnpike and the PD zone where you have our heaviest duty type of uses off of Payne Road. Again, that's PD zone. The likelihood again of how it goes in, but we're always risk averse. We're always thinking of those one-offs, what ifs. but that's government, that's zoning, it is
We
a
have to
little
look,
bit
we have to
protectionist.
look at the quality of life for everybody here.
Mhm.
That's just my opinion. I'm sorry.
Just one last quick thing is, I think in the majority of all leases that are out there on any commercial or residential housing dwelling is you have a clause of quiet enjoyment. If you're starting to mix these two in too close of a proximity without allowing for separation, I think it opens the town up to problems of, not being fulfilling a tenant's right to quiet enjoyment.
Well, that's why I say you're right, Chris, because the generator of the noise, it might have been there for years. Under this new legislation, they changed the dynamics of proximity to factories, and the state punishes the generator of the news has been there maybe for 100 years.
Right. And I
It's
think the
absurd.
issue is
It's absurd.
it, in my mind, is potentially an unintended consequence
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that
again,
I'd like to really try to see that we can at least vocalize.
yeah,
at
it's,
this point.
it's looking at it, it's looking again, what dimensional standards could be setbacks from, again, those bigger issues. For me, we example, like we have stuff that talks about loading docks, it's more of an aesthetic reason we have it right now, that it's not located on the front, that's a requirement in town. But that would be where you would get your 4 AM loading. That's where you don't have that much control over those items because a business needs to be a business. But even when you're talking about the noise ordinance, for example, the noise ordinance is zone based. It's not based upon specific users. So if you have a residential use, like an apartment building existing now within a business zone, you literally have the business zone numbers. It doesn't do residents. So like a business to a residential zone is a lower, or say a stricter standard for the noise, a lower decibel volume that's permitted than a business to a business zone. So if you choose to put a building within a business zone, you are subjecting yourself to business, like to that level. You're not protected by a residential level of noise control.
Do you recall the Krispy Kreme event?
I was not here for that, but
Well, besides one particular donut that sold pretty quickly. Remember that, Chris?
Commissioner,
Oh, yeah.
That's a perfect example of what you were talking about.
Yeah, we have questions down here.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
As far as CROG, right, we all have the same issues. And is CROG working at this as a group?
so I would say, yes, we're working, CROG had, offered to help. They put it kind of out there for multiple towns. I raised my hand, because again, I'll take as much help as I can in reviewing what we have. But no matter what, it's gonna be the commission's decision on which way you go. But CROG is looking at these items as we go through them, and that's, that's kind of the questions I've even asked about noise. Because that's really, when it comes down to it, that's gonna be the biggest issue in my mind. That's what I have focused on other applications. Again, that quiet enjoyment. Noise is different though, like depending on where you live. There are plenty of people who live, like right now, every house on Cedar Street experiences a higher level of noise than houses behind it. But that's a single family residential zone and we have that now. How you have your land laid out is a little different. Now, those things have grown, but we do have Berlin Turnpike, for example, still has a couple of houses on it that it changed over time. It has changed, but you'll still find single family houses kind of here and there that are within these zones. Now, is a single family house now a newer building built that replaces that single family house with a 3 or 9 unit that's built to modern code standards? That might not be a horrible thing. So there's going to be opportunities here, but I do think that CROG is looking at this. It will take kind of what we're looking as our issues, but at the end of the day, it's up to Newington. It's up to the TPZ to say, this works for us. These are our regulations, and adopt them.
Ally, did you have a question?
I have a lot of questions. Okay, so first of all, this packet here, this memorandum, this is a public act. So it is in stone, like it is passed.
It
Okay,
is passed and
great.
effect, it
So
has
we're
effective dates.
following it. So quite frankly, to be blunt, our opinions don't, like, how much do our opinions actually matter on what is in here? Because we have to follow it because it's the law. Like we can't say, I don't like that, so I don't want to follow it, right?
You shouldn't.
Okay, great.
Correct. Yeah.
Second of all, can we ask the town, are we gonna ask the town attorney and involve the town attorney in this? Because I feel like that's very important to do before we make any final decisions.
Yeah, I think we can definitely get a review of, because that's the thing is we'll come up with a draft framework and then submit it for review. The one thing that we will do is again, I have a 30-day time frame that I have to notify, actually, CROG, about when public hearings will start. That's statutory as well. So I will look at that and, we'll have some draft regulations ready at that time. We can continue to tweak them. The key thing is those go in for comment, they give comment back. Again, whether they conflict with, like the state POCD, whether they conflict with other issues, whether there's recommendations. So they're gonna be getting a lot of referrals from every town, because we're all required to do this when we change our zoning regulations. But then once we're in that process, I think, once we have a draft, once we're kind of moving forward, and you let me know when you want the town attorney involved. But I think once we have some numbers, then yes, we put it forward of, is this, in their opinion, within the scope? Does it follow the regulation? Does it follow the act? Is there areas where they think we need to tweak it? Where maybe we've been too restricted and they go, well, maybe that doesn't follow the spirit of it. You should be careful about this. You didn't address that. I think, yes, that would be good. And basically at the direction of the commission is when I'll submit those to the town attorney.
Great. Okay, I think that would be a great step for us. I also liked your comments about the definitions, because I think the definitions are extremely important. I liked how you rearrange certain things to put things in new sections and strike them out, because the flow of the codes and the regulations is also very important. It's harder to understand if things are in different sections when they should be together. So I really liked that you did that. And as far as quiet enjoyment, I learned different things when I was studying for the bar exam. I'm not an attorney, so I think we should really be going to the town attorney about that, and making sure that we're following the other laws regarding quiet enjoyment in addition to what's in this public act as well, because that seems to be a concern for everyone. And so I think that the commission should be asking the town attorney for their opinions on how that impacts this public act and our regulations. I don't think we should be throwing out rules and what we think it is, because I learned different things and people made comments about. So we need to be going strictly, I think, to the town attorney about this a lot. And they represent us, make them do their job. And those are my comments. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I have a couple of things, Paul. Before you got here, Chris may remember, I know Tom and Mike will remember. We had a house on Main Street and it was right next to Millwoods, and the dumpster would get dumped at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that upset the ladies that own that house. So it's not only the noise, the ambient noise during the day, but it's also coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning with that dumpster, with the truck dumping the trash. So all of this plays into quality of life. On that. The other thing that I was concerned with is there's some ways that we said we could waive this and waive that. When you said when we break the regulations. I thought it was back here when you said that, we can either, where was it? Something with the, additional code, building code, no, it's building code. I forgot exactly where it was now, but you had said that we can make some changes here and there on our regulations. I get concerned with that because there is a court case that was in Monroe. And I know we cannot waive we can't grant waivers to our regulation. It has to go to the zoning board of appeals.
That's correct. And then I think
So
on
I
this,
want to make sure that's clear.
yeah, and there isn't, and that's actually very specific at the act itself by saying you can't have subjective standards, period.
Okay.
It has to be a number, and that's your number, and if it meets it, it meets it. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Those are the questions I had.
I thought we were still at the op stage with all this stuff. Has it changed or?
What's that?
Is for the plan.
Jacob, why don't you come on up here? and talk?
I'm sorry, Paul. I didn't
No, that's
mean to
okay.
cut you off.
The opt-in is for doing your own plan, your housing growth plan. So right now, Paul is going over the zoning changes that you need to do in order to come in compliance with the law. But the opt-in, opt-out stage, that's a housing growth plan. So that's a different part of this act, well, in its entirety.
So what is that part of the act that you can opt in or opt out of?
So there's several parts, and that's why I'd recommend looking at that Connecticut COG overall summary. It does have a lot of different things that you can opt in. And again, I'll plug last night's one. I have the link to the Regional Planning Commission's meeting on that, where they did a presentation that had some of those opt-ins. Most of the opt-ins in this legislation are actually related more to ADUs. They're related to middle housing in residential zones. So this is taking there's a lot of opt-ins. Again, how we're talking these 2 to 9 units, you do earn extra housing unit equivalency points. Again, Newington we're now within the safe harbor on the 830G law. In the future, who knows, depending, especially once we get, because a lot of our numbers are actually based on they're not based on deed restricted units. A lot of them are based on tenant assistance, and a lot of them are actually based on chattel mortgages.
So there's no opting out, just opting in?
Yeah, there's no opting out of these requirements for the commercial zones. This is statute, this is law. They basically says you have to comply with these items, the 2 to 9, the parking, these are all shall items.
I agree with the have the town attorney take a look,
Yeah.
because it seems to me home rule is being violated left and right. They can come in and say this and that, but we've got a standing charter that provides home rule. And that whole thing with site where you can't allow the public to come in and have a hearing. I mean, that's a stroke of Hitler, for Christmas sake. It really is. I don't know if they get big heads there when they go there, but I don't know. And I'm not going after anybody in particular. I appreciate your support and everybody's support. But these are the frustrations that I hear just from neighbors. It's just, they're afraid of the thing.
Yep. And again, just remind everyone, we're not talking about putting this in residential zones. That's the opt-in. So the opt-in is when you say, yes, 2 to 9 units in single family residential zones.
Okay.
We're not talking, this is commercial. So just, if we pull back for a second, kind of like my concerns are the impacts of the people who are going to be moving into those. Because if you have a commercial zone, having a residential structure next to as the interface. So if you have a commercial zone and you have a residential zone, the least impactful use you could have next to your residential zone is another residential use. If you have, again, a higher level commercial use, that has far different hours, that has the dumpsters, that has all those potential issues.
Environmental issues. Right?
Yeah, of commercial uses. So again, that's where I look at this again. The eternal optimist, which I've been accused of being time to time, but there are opportunities where the zones come together, where that this would be best utilized. That if someone came in and said, I would like to redevelop, okay, where do we have problems now? Where's an opportunity to say, hey, that's a good area to put 9 units because you're between, you have a noisy user here, they want to redevelop that. You have residential on the side, single family residential. That's a good mix across the transect of uses. You think from a use to a use, having a hard line between commercial and residential is where you have your biggest friction. But I have more concerns about people where these are going to be built within the commercial zones. So again, we aren't talking about our single family residential zones, and a residential use next to a residential use is actually a least impactful compared to what else could be in the commercial zone.
Well, I forgot. Jacob, can you say your name and address so we don't, I forgot that.
Jacob Knowlton, 10 Hillside Street. Am I
Thank
good?
you.
Wait, I
Do you want me to
have
stay?
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Can I go? I was just wondering if Krog or someone else, maybe Paul knows about this, there are like studies or different towns that have gone through this already that we could like reference, especially like the quiet enjoyment and just how things play out so that we can learn more about how it's been done in other towns in the state.
Yeah, so we're all going through it at the same time, unfortunately, because the law
Oh.
gets passed and then all of us have to do it. And unfortunately, we're the first region that has to do it. We have the most amount of towns. We're all drowning, but that's okay. We are here together. We're doing it together. That's why we're trying to work as close as we can with everyone. That being said, though, we do have a housing coordinator specifically for this task that just got hired for Monday. And part of what we're looking at is kind of different standards outside of Connecticut, obviously, because all of Connecticut's doing it at the same time. and specifically noise as well, and maybe what we can do there. Right now, we're considering for noise that mainly the market is going to be able to stabilize itself when it comes to that. The other thing is to consider that not everyone is going to require the same thing, right? And so not meaning that you're going to get put next to an industrial park, but if you choose to rent a unit in a commercial zone, you are doing so knowing that there's going to be a higher level of noise. I do it myself, right? I opt into that type of living, so keeping that in mind. But to answer your question, unfortunately, we can't look in the state too much. But yeah, that's the short answer.
Okay, I'd only ask because I know there's a Noble gas station in Hartford that has a gas station and then apartments.
Yes.
So like, they still exist somewhere. So is there some sort of resource that, like, I know we're all going through this at the same time, but is there some sort of resource somewhere we can say like, hey, this worked, or hey, this actually didn't work and the neighbors hate that there,
Yeah.
or the people living above the gas station don't like it actually?
I guess my question to you is kind of like, what format would you like to receive? Like what in your mind when you're mentioning that resource, what does that look like? And then I can take that back and to my staff.
That's a great question. I will leave it open-ended for you, any information, anything.
I
I
will-
like visual, I'm a visual learner, but like if it's a whole like 40-page written report, that's fine with me. Like
Okay.
just anything you have so that we can consider that and what's happened in other towns.
So you're looking for mixed use specifically with kind of louder activity around it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Will do.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that gas station is an interesting example. When I first saw that, I was like, huh,
Yeah,
okay. And that did take a while for them to get to that
Yeah.
point, but it is interesting. And just anecdotally, that you brought up too, I talked to actually the owner of it as well.
Right.
And the interesting he was saying is how they built that building. They were having the party downstairs, the grand opening, and when they took people the tour up, you could not hear a peep upstairs. So again, that's the responsiveness of the developer to build it. But again, it's how things are constructed. There are many scenarios where you do get these things constructed together, and it's just about its quality of building.
Yeah.
Think about it, some of the nicest hotels any of us might have been in are in urban areas where it's serene and peaceful inside of them just because they were built to a very high quality.
We're not like deciding anything tonight, right? We're just discussing.
No, so
Okay, great, because
it's tonight is to get a lot of feedback
Okay.
back from you to think about, because our goal is to get some, this is very, very rough draft, what's in front of you. These are concepts. If you like how we're going with this, to continue with it, to provide you with this information so we can figure out what are these fine tune items. So we can work on this together in April and we can have drafts. We can draft for you the April and get that public hearing started in May.
I had it turned off.
All right, so for the sake of time, I'll.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other quick question, Paul
Yes.
and Jacob.
Sorry.
Have you looked at any of the other states that have something similar to this? I'm thinking more or less like Massachusetts in the big urbanized areas, or Washington State, where they've done a lot of this type thing.
Yeah, we're paying attention. I'm not sure exactly to what specific part you're mentioning, but we are looking into specifically Massachusetts and Rhode Island are the two. One, Rhode Island is because they opt out of similar laws that we do. Massachusetts because of their similar landscape. But yes, we're paying attention.
No, I'm just asking because you may be able to find something that's similar to what we have and then go with it from there.
Yeah,
That's all I was looking at.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give anybody a hard
I
time.
No.
think we're more likely to find it Pacific Northwest.
Okay,
The planning, again, that the growth zones, what they've been working on in that area for the last few decades might have some lessons learned for us to dig into. For example, that is something that I will do. Look, cast a wide net and see what is out there, if any novel ideas, creative ideas to kind of deal with this interface. Because really, yeah, that's what we're talking about. We're all talking at the end of the day about how these uses all interface with each other.
All right, that's all. Any other questions?
Do you have any sense of what the goal is here in terms of these changes? I mean, have 169 towns made consistent errors in their zoning? Have they abused people with their zoning? I could see corrective items, but I don't understand why all these things are such a better idea. And like Paul have to spend hours and hours, and you've got to spend hours and hours. I don't get what the agenda is. Is it good for the homeless? Well, that whole section's disappeared somehow. Is it affordable housing? Well, we hit our goal. We've always been open to it. We want to protect everything else around certain situations. I can't believe that 169 towns in the state of Connecticut are just so grossly ignorant, and stupid, that they have just dummies in their staff group. It's impossible. You may not agree with a factory and a house and a drugstore, as I'm sure you've witnessed in your time. But I don't understand it, I guess. I just don't understand what it's supposed to cure. Not letting the public speak on a site plan? Is that democracy being enhanced? I don't get it. I'll be honest with you. I don't understand it. I just don't.
We can debate that. Later, Joe. What I'm concerned with here is there is a lot of questions we've raised tonight for both CROG and people. I would like to try to get some of them answered. And I definitely think that Ally's correct. We need to bring whatever you write up. Maybe just run it by the town attorney real quick before we even look at it. All right, because I want to make sure we're on solid ground here.
Okay.
And like I said, I've been on this commission for close to 18, 20 years. On and off. And I've seen people come up with, how we stuffed houses in here and we stuffed this here. People complain about noise. I'm sure if you talk to Ryan Dean, he'll tell you how many complaints they get because the properties are so close that people argue all the time. So, I mean, this is something where another concern that I have, if you have 6 square, all right? Supposing 2 or 3 people don't get along. So I'm just saying that you can ask the police department, see how many domestics they have or whatever you want to call it now, where neighbor disputes because they're too close. Maybe some guy will say, hey, you're looking at me too strange or whatever. Well, that's what I'm suggesting that you also maybe want to take into effect with Ryan Dean, see if he can give you some information on that.
Yep. And at the
There
end of
is
the
a
day,
rumor out there, Paul.
people choose where they live. I think that's going to be like,
Correct.
when we
No,
pull
no.
back onto that one, it's like, there are many, I live in a dense area. I live on a main road. There's noise. It's part of my lived experience. There are people who choose to live way out into the woods. Newington has less woods than it used to, primarily because of the commercial development areas that we're talking about putting more residents in. So it's an understood area of noise. So again, these would be residents who are choosing to go there. I get the kind of concerns about how everything does work together.
Right.
That's actually talking about, how these units are actually constructed in a building, I talked about before, having all those separate entrance, the community hallway, you can have friction, but you can also build community. It's a natural thing of when you put
Right.
humans together.
I was just bringing that up
I get it.
because I know of an instance about 3 or 4 months ago that occurred on 50-foot lot. The driveway's right on the property line.
Mhm.
And it's not- That's all I was saying. So I mean, I know the police were called. So I'm just saying that maybe that's something that should be addressed also. Trying to squeeze something into a small lot is not necessarily the best thing to do.
Yeah, and anything that's gonna be constructed like this, these 2 to 9 units,
Right.
everything is communal together. Like there's no way, again, it talks about a building. So these are all going to be communal type of things where there are more than one unit. People are living together, it's understood. I think where a lot of the friction kind of comes in too is when people have that, okay, this is my house, I own it. that's where that friction is between two owners right on a property line. And
That's what
you got one guy paves over, one guy goes to that, you have an argument of who's paying for it, and then all of a sudden everyone goes nuts. We have it all the time. Someone puts a fence over 1 foot over that one, they come complaining to us, they're on my property. There's a lot of that, like, when it comes to the ownership. And that's where I think a lot of friction is, of like, this is my type of thing. I think these are gonna be naturally community type of based buildings because they have to be by their design, by what's even stated. Nothing in here is actually saying that you can build a single family house and go checkerboard single family houses in commercial areas. That's not the intent of this.
No, I understand, Paul, but I'm just saying that the more you squeeze people into
Mhm.
smaller areas, the more confrontational it could get. That's all I was concerned with.
Yes.
I have
Any
one
other-
more. Oh,
yes, any
no,
other
Commissioner
questions?
Fox can go because he
Mike?
hasn't said anything yet, and then can I go after?
You have a question?
Oh, I thought you were going to speak.
I'm letting you go first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've been quiet through all of this, which is kind of unusual. And but you know, I kind of had thoughts such as Commissioner Harvey has regarding as, you know, what's the reason behind this? However, you know, I have to, in my mind, you know, I'm not going to worry about that. What I'm going to worry about is we were presented with this mess. Right now it's a mess, and we have to do something with it. All right. I definitely wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Rice Davies that town attorney or a land use attorney, we should get a land use attorney, not necessarily a town attorney. I'm not even sure who it is these days. Yeah, but I think we should get a professional, experienced land use attorney.
Right.
Because as you said here, once you know, I think the current couple or individual people that are currently looking for a place to live are not necessarily looking for McMansions, or even a place like some of us have. I mean, when I found my house, it was a mistake. I was walking by with a little kid and going to the in-laws house. And, oh, look, he's put up a sign, beautiful old house. So I bought this beautiful old house and have been struggling with it ever since. But, you know, most people these days, I think, are looking for community living. Commons, you know, back in the 60s, yeah, we were looking for communes. I don't know too many of you that realize that. Maybe you.
Well, you were in San Francisco, so
Huh?
we can't compete with that.
No, actually, I remember teachers. But anyway, so no, that's all I wanted to say. Let's just worry about maybe working with Prague or other towns.
Right.
And then, you know, kind of putting it together for our own town. Trying to, I know we can't, you know, satisfy everybody. A lot of people here, well, in this town wanted to stay quaint, and I don't think it's been quaint for a long time, and some want a lot of development. So, you know, we've got to be careful. And I hope I don't expect to see us for quite a while. I think we should be going through a lot of drafts, making sure they all go through the town attorney. And hopefully we can come up with something that is good for the town.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
just
Commissioner
one-
Davis?
One quick comment. I believe it's on page 3 of the memorandum dated March 20th, 2026.
Mhm.
I was wondering if we could have the town attorney's opinion on the language on point 2 under section 5.3.
Mhm.
I am interpreting it differently than other commissioners, so I would like the town attorney's opinion on that interpretation.
Yep.
And I think that might help with our discussion.
Again, that's pretty much taken right from the statute itself.
Yeah,
And I think there's a lot in here that can be cleaned up even. Like, for example, what I put up in front for parking, this is a lot of this in this section. You can see it up on the screen right now. We have these, you know, we're trying to marry this mandate with our regulations. And I think there might be a way to distill it even more common sense than it is.
Mhm.
It's a thought process to do that, to make sure you don't miss the intent, to make sure it's still clear. But I think we can make it even clearer than it is and simplify it. I think that can do a lot of the regulations. And again, we're working on this core part of it, but we're gonna be right back into our regulations again after this on the larger part of the regulations, because that is a project for the commission that I want to get going, but we keep having these things that pop up.
Yes.
That we have to address on the immediate side. But no, I agree. Again, this is taken pretty much directly from the act itself.
Good.
All set?
Yep.
So I'll kind of go over stuff quickly. Again, I had these, I'm gonna make it simpler since we did a lot of back and forth. I don't want to keep you here all night. Looking at parking, you have this in your packet. There are those two scenarios. This is updating our parking, talking about those 16 or more units, how we can require the spaces. But I kind of want to get into, there's one other item we haven't talked about that much yet, and it's about the conservation and traffic mitigation district. So this is one of those caveats. I can skip part of this if you would like me to. This is on your materials. You have it in front of you if you have questions on it. Again, that's the gist of it. Going through our regulations, again, updating 16 or more units. This is kludgy. We'll have to figure out a way to make it look good, readable. But this kind of just shows you where it will live. We have those discretionary screening in a residential zone, landscaping requirements. This is kind of, we talked about, this is in your materials too. Items that, again, the commission reserves the right to determine the need for. Whenever we have a statement like that, we have to review our regulations when it comes to housing and these 2 to 9 units, because that doesn't summary review. We can't reserve the right to determine the need for. We have to say there is a need or not a need. So I just want to kind of highlight that. Same with green space. Take a look at this. Do we want to keep this 10%? Anywhere where we have discretion in our regulations now does need to be looked at for summary review. You can still have discretion when it comes to special permits. Site plans is still not, they're not really that discretionary, but if you have regulations that have specific scenarios, like you can have this, but if this happens, then this could happen. Like that's the buffer where, you know, you can always determine that there's a sufficient natural buffer. You can always have to require specific buffer. And we'll get into kind of definitions. This is kind of what we talked about. These definitions, transit community, middle use residential, or mixed use residential, that's in a building. So I did want to bring this up. We need to look at our specifically, we have, what is the exact term again? It's not the mixed use development. We have a terminology, mixed occupancy. We have a very different terminology as we're looking through these regulations that we got to be careful about. And this is kind of one of the things about mixed occupancies we permit on a site. So how does this relate to residential and commercial uses? We do need to view that. I see that as a potential point where someone says, well, mixed use residential, which is specific to this act. Mixed use residential is in a building it talks about. So this is true mixed use that we're used to it now. Mixed occupancy that we permit in our areas is mixture of different uses, period, that are allowed in the zone. So that's why I wanted to look at that. Maybe we looked at mixed occupancy. We make this clear about what is allowed where. Define the parking needs assessment. Those are things, you know, because that's what we have to do. We all have to look through these regulations and find anywhere where this could trip it up, where we need to update it. We're actually gonna have a lot of opportunities to change and update things that, we're not belaboring it, but outdoor dining, I would like to just update that. We've kind of dealt with it. There are little things that we'll go through, but I really want to focus on the important part first to make sure we get what's needed to be done.
Let's get this done first and we go back and do the rest.
Yeah. So definitions, you have all these different duplexes, triplex, perfect six, cottage cluster, townhouse, or dwelling attached, dwelling detached, dwelling multifamily, dwelling unit. Which way does the commission want to go? There are specific ones that are in the act, or there's more generic ones where we just talk about one family, two families, multiples. But we should do it consistently across our regulations. It is pretty inconsistent right now. So that's something we definitely want to look at. And the last one that I wanted to get to. So when we were talking about areas of the town where there could be the most issue with parking, with no access around it, with no sidewalks, no like mixed transit, no accessibility other than cars, we can have a parking management, a conservation and traffic mitigation district. Now, we still have to submit these to OPM. These are not automatic. We don't get just to say, that's it, it's approved, we're done, it's a zone. Still will need to go to OPM. We'll still probably have some reasons behind it, but we can designate up to 2 districts and they can be 4% each. Now, this is a good example from CROG where they did for the Regional Planning Commission, where it kind of shows you 4 and 4, but you can't, do 2% and 6%. They can be contiguous though. And primarily when you look at this, think about areas of the town, but in the commercial area, I am really thinking about the Berlin Turnpike zone, the PD zone, anywhere we kind of have that. 8% is pretty close to most of that area. And I hope to work on getting, again, next month, a map together to show you what 8% could represent. This is where I would want to sit together with Rob Hillman, where I'd want to sit together with with Ryan Dean, sit together with all the people who deal with the day-to-day issues in the town with traffic and maintenance, and ask them, where do you see the biggest issues where no parking causes a problem, where someone pushing to street parking would cause a big issue? This is where we can put those parking management preservation districts in place to make sure that, yes, you're still required parking because really there's no public transit, there's no sidewalks. The reality of someone living there without a car is so low that you have to have a car and not to externalize that into the public way. So there is an option there. They did write this in there. So I wanted to kind of point that out to you as well. This is something that I believe the town should pursue, especially in those areas where we talk to the police, we talk to highways, and we figure out where could be their biggest areas of conflict.
So you might want to conclude fire,
Yes,
all right?
absolutely.
Because, they have enough trouble trying to get their apparatus around stuff as it is now,
Mhm.
especially on Cedar Street. So I want to make sure all the bases are covered.
So the act didn't completely leave us without a mechanism of addressing areas that, again, are lacking these facilities, that the realities of someone not having a car they're not there. They're gonna have a car. You need a car to live in most areas in Connecticut. It's very rare that you actually have a spot that is so good with transit where you can actually live car-free. There's only probably a couple areas in Connecticut, and they're gonna be in New Haven or the dense cities where you can get around on a public transport.
Commissioner Woods has his hand raised.
Commissioner Woods.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's been a lot of discussion around the table as to, what the goal is with this. And my suggestion is that at our next meeting that we do a discussion on this, is that we invite the state delegation to come to speak to us, whether they voted for it or against it, and their reasons why for both. Let's hear it from the people that, again, either supported it or didn't support it, and get their rationale. And I think that could help us a lot in determining, what their goals were, what their thinking was, and help us work through this project.
I agree with you.
And the goal here, obviously, and I guess nobody really wants to say it, it's housing, right? Where there's a huge housing shortage. I think it's 40 million units that are short nationwide. And there's too many towns that still have very restrictive zoning that are, I think some are actually still up into 5 acres, some 2, some 3, some 1, and they just don't want it. Newington is not one of those communities. Again, I've stood on my laurels here and preached this a lot as a member of this commission. I think Newington has done an excellent job of making sure that we try to fill everybody's needs, no matter where you are on the spectrum. When something like this happens, we take it offensively, I believe, and a little personally. I don't see it as being a huge problem, although it could be. I just don't see it being as a huge problem in Newington because we don't have the space and we don't even have the types of buildings that I can see that we could renovate, or a developer could renovate into most of these structures. I do have one question. It's actually for Paul, because there's a business on Main Street that just went closed up. It was a Newington Meat Market for years, and before that, it was a little convenience store. How would this Senate bill or public act affect that piece of property? Could they tear that down and build multi-unit housing in there? without a public hearing?
So interestingly enough, that's a pre-existing nonconformity.
It's also
So-
zoned as residential.
It's zoned as, that's what I say, it's zoned as
Oh, it is?
residential. So
Okay,
they could just tear that down and build a single family house at the
okay,
moment.
Yes.
all right.
So yeah, that's the,
So it's
but
not a commercial piece.
correct.
Okay. So bad example, sorry. But I mean, we do
So,
have.
if there are other ones,
Yeah, if you look at Newington Center, right, top of, TJ's, bar and pub, there's apartments. The top of all of the, businesses along Main Street in the center of town, there's apartments up there. So we do have it. Granted, we don't have a lot of it and I don't see it growing drastically. But for me, if we could get the delegation in, to help us understand their rationale, I think I would feel more comfortable moving forward. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
I said, we can always, through the town manager, I'll extend, the invitation. And, if there are, and this is, whether they're existing out there, extend the invitation, or if they can reference us to any talks, that they've given on it previously or any recorded, just forward those along as well.
Yeah, I
If they do not
understand.
come.
We can't command them to come. We can only ask them.
Correct.
I'd also like to say that it is the middle of session, so they are busy. It's not the best time, but we shouldn't hold that against them if they can't show up.
Mhm.
The session goes sometimes to like midnight, so that's my only comment.
Yep, and
It's a good
again,
idea, but I'm not sure they understand it.
yeah, and again, as,
So much confusion up there. The few times I went up, they were having fights with each other.
yep, and as Commissioner Woods pointed out, again, in the title, it's an act concerning housing growth. So the title of the act is clear. It's an act concerning housing growth. Housing growth is in the title.
Well, I agree with Mr. Woods. My read of it is it's developer friendly. Doesn't really do much for the town unless you've got some issues, to go to his point. But an argument could be easily made that this is development friendly document.
Yep, and
When you can allow the public to quote any or discuss in a town hall meeting, a respect of the site plan itself, my goodness.
and I'll just,
That's about as deep as you can get violating home rule.
if I could, Mr. Chairman, one last level set. When we're looking at it, yes, friendly on that one, but we're not talking about more than 9 units. So the developers who are coming in with 40, with 30, the ones we have seen, that's still our normal process. So this is narrow in what it is. Correct, it is friendlier on that one by saying summary review. You can't have a public hearing, you can't have discretionary. It is a narrow type of development. You won't see the same type of developers. Typically, the type of developer who's building 50 units and the type of developer who's building 200 and something apartment buildings aren't looking to build the 9 units.
But it doesn't speak to what the harm would be to have a public hearing. That's why I say it's developer friendly. But I agree with Mr. Woods that if we can access the legislative people to come.
Yep,
That would
I'll
be
forward
great.
that through the town manager.
Okay. All set?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Woods. Okay, old business. Any old business?
None.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Last question. Rock Hole Lane, can you give us an update on that?
The
On their Holy
subdivision,
Spirit-
houses are under construction. I'm trying to think,
You've pulled a few permits.
we've
for a
issued
couple houses.
several plot plans, multiple under construction. I can definitely give you an update. And it's actually probably about time that I drive around town and snap a bunch of pictures for you guys to show you how Rock Hall's going, how Culver is going. We can all see how 690 is going. That's pretty how I know.
You may not want to come down to Culver. That guy's very confused. He's gonna get siding on it. If it kills me, he's gonna get up on the building. All righty.
All right, there's no old business, any petitions scheduling, Paul?
So there is one. This is the buffet restaurant. That's 190 6 Skits Lane.
Kingdom Buffet, yeah.
Yeah, Kingdom Buffet. Again, when they came through and just got the restaurant permit and did not choose to get their Liquor permit at the same time. Well, now they're back for the liquor permit. Same thing we've done with multiple ones, pretty straightforward. I do not believe, I don't know what their timing exactly is, how they're doing with their building permit, but, again, they can come in and tell you
They're open.
they're open.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
open.
so yeah, so now they want to add this, so again,
Okay.
we'll see if we hear any issues about it. I doubt we will. It's kind of pretty straightforward. It's a buffet in a larger commercial establishment next to Stop and Shop.
Thank you. Communications, we have the CROG letters. Second round of public participation, maybe wishing to talk, please, state your name and address.
Jacob Knowlton, 10 Hillside Street. To Commissioner Rice Davis's point of the town attorney, one big thing that we're advising from CROG is that public health and safety component of this act. Definitely consult with your attorney, because I know there was some mention about if parking is considered in there, that one is going to be a little bit dangerous to walk on that line. Obviously you have the opportunity for those specific, the congestion zones to, where that is actually a safety concern, to implement that. And that's why it's a interesting line to walk. So definitely for that public health and safety, there's no clarification exactly what that means. So definitely speak to your legal counsel for sure. That's all.
Thank you, Jake. Anybody else? Anybody online?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rose.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. Paul, I have to thank you for giving these presentations. I just wish they weren't during the budget season. This is way too much for this 80-year-old to keep everything in her head and try to figure out what's going on. But I think the more that the people know about this, the better off we are. And I know that you'll be advertising the public hearings. I just hope that people that have so much to say on Facebook at times show up and listen to what you have to say and voice their concerns when that does happen. And it's very hard being at home and watching. I'm watching on YouTube and I'm listening on the phone. A lot of you are talking without being called on, and it's kind of like a back and forth. I don't know if you have to be called on or if that's the normal procedure, but unless you know the cast of characters, which I do, including myself, you don't know who's speaking. And there was a lot of questions asked tonight and points being made, and it would be nice to know who is speaking. With that being said, good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Rose.
Anybody else? Eric?
No one else online, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman?
Remarks by commissioners. Any remarks by commissioners?
I want to compliment Paul and the staff work on this.
Yeah, great job.
Well done. Appreciate it.
We've just begun.
Way to go.
Okay.
Good job. Good job.
My closing remarks is, thank you very much for attending. We'll be working on this. I'm sure Paul will have something ready by the next meeting, or some draft anyway, along with talking to the attorney. Okay? With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
bye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a good